Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Welcome to the show. We're going to talk about some top stacks here on the Week 11 slate on Draftkings. Clearly, these can also be used on FanDuel. I just use Draftkings because it's an easier system. I like their setup a little bit more for the stream. Any stack that we're talking about from a game philosophy standpoint, from a game theory standpoint for tournaments is clearly viable on FanDuel. So if you play on one site versus the other, the players are still pretty much the same. They're not using like half of the players on one and none of the players in the other one. It's more about attacking game situations with a correlated lineup and a bring back play so that you can try and be right about one thing, meaning the quarterback, one or two of his pass catchers, and one or two of the bring back players, as opposed to being right about 3, 4, 5 spots on a lineup. One thing hits, all of a sudden, that lineup is shooting way up the standings and giving you a chance at a big day. Whether you're playing mass multi-entry, single entry, 3-max, these stacking philosophies are in play for all of those games. The thing that I said that most people should do if they're, you want to get back to base. If you're not having a good fantasy football season on DFS, I would highly suggest you sticking to these smaller field games to get back to where you want to be. So that means if you're trying to say, I've used these philosophies, but I haven't gotten into the top 100 in the Millie Maker. You know why? It's really hard to get into the top 100 of the Millionaire Maker. There's like 200, 300,000 other people that are trying to get into the top 100 spots in that tournament. So it's very difficult to get all the way up there. Winning tournaments is hard. So if you bring down the size of the field and play a 100 to a 200 man tournament, I know that FanDuel has great great 100 man tournaments. If you go to that tab, anywhere from $1 up to $100, depending on how big your bankroll is, and you use these sorts of philosophies to lineup build, you might see more success in a more rapid fashion if you are on the right stuff than you will when you're in a massively multi-enter, large field, massive field tournament like the Millionaire Maker, the Slant on either site, whatever. So getting more towards single or 3 entry lineups with smaller fields. If you are not having success, go back to basics, go back to ABC, use these philosophies, not necessarily these players, because I like to talk to you about the way you should be building lineups instead of the exact players you should be using to get yourself to have better lineups. So that's what we're going to do here on this video today, just like every week. Drop a like on the video. Let's see if we can get over 1,000 likes on this one this week. Please subscribe to the channel. Every click helps. Ring the notifications bell, leave a reply, and we do now have the join button. If you want to become a channel member on YouTube, then that opens up Discord for you. Anybody can join the Discord. There's free channels if you guys want to get in there, but they're lightly trafficked. They don't have as much traffic in there as the VIP channels for the Twitch and the YouTube subscribers. So use that join button. If you don't see the join button, because I know that some people have said that they don't see it, there's a link in the description down below that'll say join this channel by clicking here. And you get some emotes, you get a badge by your name, and you get access. The biggest value out, in my opinion, is the Discord. So let's get to my top 5 stacks on the week. And I hope you like the new Christmas studio. Christmas came early this year because it's 2020 and we all need a little bit more, kindness and cheer in our lives. So let's get to the 5 stacks. Desean Watson. There are ways that this stack can go wrong this week. I'm going to start this off by saying that. Okay, so if New England gets out to a lead, and let's say they get out to a 10-point or a 14-point lead midway through the first half, you can bet your butt that they're going to try and slow this game down, bleed the clock on every single play. They're going to run it 40 to 45 times, and that's not going to leave an awful lot of offense or offensive opportunities for Desean Watson and the Houston Texans. But we've seen them play from behind this year because that New England's defense is not as good as it used to be. Also, Houston's defense is somewhat atrocious, but that's amazing for fantasy purposes. And we predicted that before the season, and it kind of panned out that way. So there's a great chance that this game could shoot out to be more than what it is totaled for. And right now, I believe it's kind of a pick 'em around 47 total points. I think this is one of those games that could get 55 to 60 points if everything breaks our way. And in the case that it does that, are going to want to have shares of this and bring back options. So Desean Watson, we've seen a better floor from him recently, running the ball over 7 times each of the last 3 games. And if you look at every other game this season from the beginning of the year, and when Bill O'Brien was there until he left, he had not run the ball once in any one game more than 7 or more times. So we do have that increased floor from him from the more designed runs that they've been putting out there. That gives us more access to a rushing touchdown upside. He's had multiple touchdowns in 3 of the last 4 games. Last week against Cleveland, they only scored 7 points. 40-mile-an-hour winds, terrible game scoring environment, terrible fantasy environment with that sort of weather. Obviously, that's not going to be the case in Houston this week. So Desean Watson is clearly in play for me, and there are going to be a few players that we can stack with him. I'm going to go over to the Rotogrinders lineup HQ here. If you're interested in using the lineup HQ over at Rotogrinders, it's a fantastic tool, as well as all the other content that they have. You can sub. There's going to be a link right down below in the pinned comment. Go click on that. Even if you're not going to sub, just go click on it, right? It helps me show them that, hey, people are clicking on the thing. So even if you're not going to buy it, just click the link. If you are interested in buying it, it's there. It gives you 4 sports. The best way to get involved is to buy it on a Thursday. They have a 1-week option, and that allows you to get access to the lineup builder and their projections and everything else for the Thursday night showdown, the main slate on Sunday, the Sunday night showdown, the Monday night showdown, to give yourself an idea of how to use a lineup builder. And if you've never mass multi-entered before, I've said it all season long, you should be trying it in those mini max games, those games that are 10 cents, 25 cents, 50 cents, to see if you can have a really good chance at winning like 5 to 10K during football season with 150 lineups, using a smarter lineup approach than most people who are playing at those bankroll levels. So you guys being here every single show is already putting you in a plus EV situation in those tournaments versus the majority of the field. So Will Fuller has been extremely good all season long. I'm Xing out week 10 for the Texans. Like this game does not even matter to me. He's still got 8 targets in a game where there were 40-mile-an-hour winds. Brandon Cooks did not have a good game. 40-mile-an-hour winds, cuts down their ADOT. You're talking about a guy who is a big downfield threat, but also piles in a lot of targets. Was not able to get there last week. Again, bad game environment. I'm Xing it out. Brandon Cooks clearly in play for me. If you want to include the tight ends, Fells or Akins, for value options, they're kind of thin, but they can score touchdowns. That's really all that you're going after there. You're chasing touchdown upside if you get them. You don't need very much from either one. If they score 7 to 10 points, if that's what's allowing you to jam in extra players into your lineup this week, then I'm fine with them too. So let's go over to the Rotogrinders lineup builder. Let's click on Houston. This is our team player group. We just click on that. We're also going to build our bring back groups up here in the opponent player options. I think that Duke Johnson is a very viable play this week, but I'm not going to include him in my stacks. I'm probably going to exclude running backs from popping in quarterback stacks. Not going to use Pro Size, Howell, him, Fells, Akins, fine with one of them, but not both. Make your pick there. Not going to use Kenny Stills. Randall Cobb will be in that group. Kiki Kute will not. Probably going to use 1 to 2 of these. I'm going to set this to apply for all the groups. If you want to set a group to say, I want only double stacks from this team, I'm totally fine with that as well. We don't know yet about the bring back group. I'm not going to include the running backs. Well, sorry, I am going to include the running backs. Burkhead for sure. Damian Harris is really the question mark here, because if Damian Harris has a big game without having a big play, right? So if Damian Harris has like 120 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns and doesn't have like one of them being an 80-yard touchdown where he does all of it for you on one play, that means that New England is winning this game, and that means that they're going to play super slow, and that's really bad for your Watson stack. So the correlation may not work with Harris. There are paths to him being viable, but they're more on the other side of that. If you think that it's not going to win, if you're fighting against, if you think that Houston's not going to have a good day, then you want to have more Harris. So I'm probably going to X him out of these stacks. Izzo, not really all that interested. Going to stick to a very tight stack here. If Edelman comes back, that's going to change. Somebody like Jacoby Myers might want to just have Jacoby Myers in the vast majority of these stacks this week. If I'm using one opposing player, you can set it to 1 to 2 if you'd like, and apply this rule to all different bring back groups. Jacoby Myers has been outstanding this stretch with Edelman out, with 40% of New England's targets, just a monster rate, essentially. So he's going to be the highest played one. If you want to find different routes to go, that's fine with me. If you want to go with the single stack or double stack, also fine with me. Our next player that we got to talk about is the cover boy for this week, Joe Burrow. Massively mispriced. He's 5,500. I've spoken about him on basically every other show. I have him in the head-to-head battle against Joe Holka. Talked about him on First Look. I've done enough footage. He's in Best Buys this week. If you're on ESPN Plus and want to read the article, go for it. dropping back basically 40 times essentially every single week. This is a better game environment. Yes, Washington has a good front seven, but they are very susceptible against the pass on the outside if Burrow can get passes off, which I think he will be able to. He's been quite good and been touchdown unlucky on the season. We saw it kind of bounce a couple of weeks. This is a spot where I do believe he can have multiple touchdowns. And there are specific guys we want to go to. T. Higgins has, over the last 3 games, seen about 25 to 30% of the market share targets. Very good. Tyler Boyd getting those easy convertible targets. AJ Green, the run may just be over at this point. I'm probably going to include him in the stacks because he's super cheap and I don't need much from him, but I'm probably going to limit him as well. If you want to have Drew Sample in those stacks, you can, but it's extremely thin, right? You're hoping that he just catches a touchdown in those stacks, and we'll talk about the bring back groups once we get to them. So let's go to our team player groups. Let's bring up Cincinnati. Not going to use any of the running backs, not going to use Gio Bernard in the stacks with Joe Burrow. I'm going to keep this really thin and simple to just these 3 wide receivers right now. You can expand this if you want. I'm going to use 1 to 2 of these guys in every one of those groups. Going to our opponent player groups, bring up Burrow again. We're going to cut most of these guys out, but I will allow Antonio Gibson against Cincinnati. I will allow JD McKissic against Cincinnati, as he's basically just getting a ton of looks. I don't think that he's going to see 14 or 15 targets this week. I know it's me going really far out on a limb, right? Like, here's the limb. Here's me really far out on the limb that I don't think JD McKissic's going to get 14 targets again. But 7 to 10 targets is very much in play. That offense just runs better when Antonio Gibson is a threat, even though Antonio Gibson not as good a pass blocker. But when you've got a quarterback like Alex Smith who gets the ball out as fast as he does, it's usually pretty good. So other players that we're going to use in this stack, not going to use Sprinkle. Am going to use Inman, no. Sims, Cam Sims or Steven Sims, probably going to lean toward Cam Sims, but I want very few of him. And Isaiah Wright, not all that interested in as well. I want as much Terry McLaurin as I can get in these stacks. I'm probably going to have some of the running backs in these stacks, and then obviously at 3,300, this is just too cheap. Our next stack is going to be Lamar Jackson, who's the highest priced quarterback on the slate this week. Now, I understand that he hasn't had very many big games this year. 7.3K is a lot to pay, but you're getting a discount on his pass catchers, and it's a very condensed group of players that we are going to have to choose from here. Tennessee, extremely susceptible, a pass funnel defense, which means that they're giving up a lot of yards, and they're giving up a lot of yards deep. And what do Lamar Jackson's pass catchers have in common between Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown? You could even include Bill Snead in that. They are able to get deep down the field. So if you think that Marquise at 5,800, boomer bust play for sure. If they can connect and Lamar has a 3 or 4 touchdown game, maybe one of those coming on the ground, and we have seen increased rushing yardage from Lamar Jackson as well. More recently, since that 3-yard game against against Cincinnati. Got the bonus against Philly, 65 yards, 58 yards, 55 yards. Rushing touchdowns are fluky and back and forth. So like, we can't really count on that, but we can count on a solid rushing floor with the possibility of rushing touchdown upside for Lamar Jackson. And if he has the ability this week to cash in on those long air yard, long A-dot throws that he has not been able to connect with, we could see a 4 touchdown total game from Lamar Jackson here with Marquise Brown and a 4,900 Mark Andrews, which has come way down from where he was priced earlier in the season at 6,500. Very easy to get this stack. Yeah, you got to pay up for Lamar Jackson, but the complementary pieces that you can stack are apart from one another. There is some talk that both of them are not correlated well with each other, so double stacks are a little bit more dangerous. If Marquise has a really big day, then Mark Andrews probably doesn't have a really big day, but they're priced at a point where they don't have to have that massive day, which is where they were priced before. So let's go back over to Rotogrinders. We'll click on our team player groups for Jackson. Never going to include the running backs with them. I'm going to have a very simple player group here between these 3 guys. If you want to include Boykin in that group, you can. Snead has been the underneath guy right now. Boykin has touchdown upside. He is a great profiled athlete who has just not put it all together in his first 2 seasons. But big body, super fast, just hasn't put it all together for us on the field. So this would kind of be where I was going to go through. Obviously, Andrews does project to have some traffic on him this weekend. And then building our opponent bring back groups. I'm going to probably keep this down to 1 to 2 players because I think there are some talented options on this team. Baltimore has been a good defense, but they've lost some players along the defensive line, which brings Derrick Henry into focus this week. You can get a very premium stack going with Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry projects at under 10% this week. So this is going to be a contrarian stack with all pro level players that we can kind of attack with and give ourselves the opportunity at upside to capture all of it on a game that could kind of be an in-division shootout here. Going back to our third stack, I did this a few weeks ago, and y'all were big mad. You did not like that I had Kirk Cousins as a play, as a leverage off of Cook, and guess what? He did pretty good. Dalvin Cook projects to be one of the highest played players on this slate. So if you want leverage against Dalvin Cook, who is not all that involved in the passing game, he's talented, he can catch passes, but the way that they're running offenses here in Minnesota, they're just not throwing him the ball. So Kirk Cousins against a really soft Dallas defense, the fantasy carnival, if you will, puts us in a spot where we can get some leverage against this Dalvin Cook percent in tournaments. Now, you need to talk your way through this and figure out not just the why, but the what. What has to happen for this to be realistic? Adam Thielen, one of the league leaders in terms of red zone targets and end zone targets. He had 2 touchdowns. I hate the fact that this passing game went off on Monday night, by the way, because now more people are going to be aware that this should be something they are thinking of, and that makes me not happy. I don't want people thinking about this at all, but here we are. So Adam Thielen in play. What percent of the time can he have a 20+ point fantasy day on DraftKings? Figure that out this weekend. Jefferson, low floor, high ceiling. We've seen 4 target games from him. We've seen multiple games with 9-10 targets from him. We've seen 24 points, 42 points, 33 points, 17. We've seen games with 5, 5, and 9. I'm not concerned with his floor for tournaments. I'm concerned with his ceiling for tournaments. And anytime you play Dallas, that's in play. I need you to ask yourself, is there a world where Kirk Cousins in the first half against Dallas ends the half with 200 passing yards and 2 touchdowns? How possible is that to happen? There's a range of outcomes for anything. What is the percent chance in your head? It's a rhetorical question. What percent chance do you think that has to happen? And then think, what percent of the field is going to play Kirk Cousins stacks? And if the number of the probability is higher than the percent played combination of those players, then that makes it a very good tournament play for me. Dallas, very susceptible down on deep balls, down the sideline. Both Thielen and Jefferson do give us that as a part of their plays, as part of their locker. We should get Irv Smith back this week. We'll see. He was limited in the Wednesday practice. Monitor this as the week goes on. If he's out, then Kyle Rudolph should see increased targets as well. 4 2 weeks ago, 5 last week against Chicago. And I'm probably not going to include Dalvin Cook in these stacks because he just hasn't been all that used in the passing game, at least not predictably so. So we're going to use this stack to kind of leverage things. So we're going to go over here. We're going to build our team player groups with Minnesota. I'm going to X out basically everybody. I may go full on double stacks here with this particular team and just make sure, not Madison, make sure that with this team I have, because if this goes off, I want to be all over it. And if Dalvin Cook has, let's say, what if Dalvin Cook has 100 yards, 2 catches, 20 yards through the air and no touchdowns, and Kirk throws for 3 or 4 touchdowns and they all go to the passing game? I want to take as much of this upside as I can in the case that this is a thing that happens. Just like before, tournaments, pretty much everything's on the table. And you want to be able to reasonably rationalize the things that you think can happen in that game. So I will include basically all the weapons that they have as a bring back. I'm probably going to include just one of these players on Dallas. We should get Dalton back in this game, who is a more talented passer. Probably not going to include him, but like one of these guys max. If you want to go with skinny stacks because you think Minnesota's defense is going to completely throttle Dallas and nobody's going to be viable on the other side, I get that. I'm probably going to include one bring back play from Dallas in those stacks. And that leads us to our final top stack of the day, Ben Roethlisberger. Pretty good. Now, I understand that people are going to want to say, well, they're going to play from ahead in this game. We project them to play from ahead in this game. And therefore, I want to have James Conner because they're going to run the ball. Well, we thought that the last few weeks and it didn't happen. Are there paths for James Conner to run the ball 22 times and have 150 yards and 2 touchdowns? Yes. Are there also paths for James Conner in a game that they project to win to have 13 touches? They won 36-10 last week, and he had 13 carries and 2 catches. He had 9 against Dallas when they got down and only two targets in that game. Against Baltimore, a game that they won, 15. Like, he's just not getting heavy volume right now. Now, can that change in a one-game scenario? Of course. But we have 3 really, really good pass catchers to choose from. With Juju Smith-Schuster, Claypool, and Johnson. I'm probably going to stack up probably 2 guys in this, and I'm also going to include Eric Ebron in that stack. So going back over to Rotogrinders, clicking on Ben Roethlisberger. I'm not going to include any of the running backs in this group. I'm going to include those 3 wide receivers. I'm going to make sure that I have exactly 2 of these players. I'm going to X out James Washington from this group and look at what the projected play is of these guys. Ebron, 3.6%. Deontay Johnson, 10. Juju Smith-Schuster, 5.5. Chase Claypool, 5.8. I think that's going to be higher than that, but it's going to be evenly spread. And the people that are going to play Roethlisberger with double stacks is probably going to be lower because people can't make a decision. They want to go with the easiest decision, the path of least resistance. And in tournaments, that's not really where you want to be. You don't want to be on the path of least resistance in tournaments all the time. You want to be the path that's less traveled by. That's what we want. We want less people on those plays. I understand if you don't want to go with James Robinson in your bring back group. I totally do. LaVisca, we're going to monitor his injuries. We're going to go with these guys right here for this bring back group. And that's basically going to do it. I appreciate you guys being here this week. Thank you for showing up to another video. Make sure that you click the links down below. Every click helps on this channel, whether it's a like or a subscribe. If you do choose to join the channel, make sure that you click on the Discord. If you're not going to join the channel, there are free channels for you as well there. Thank you for joining, and look for another video right over my face.
He's a legend.